The morning everything changed.
On the morning of August 13, 2018, in Frederick, Colorado, a pregnant mother named Shanann Watts was reported missing by a close friend.
At first, it didn't look like a crime. Shanann was 15 weeks pregnant. She had 2 young daughters, 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste.
Her husband, Chris Watts, told police she had left after an emotional argument. He said she took the kids.
He said he didn't know where she went.
Body camera footage from that morning shows Chris standing calmly in his driveway, speaking softly to officers. He appeared nervous but cooperative.
He even allowed police to enter the house. Inside, nothing seemed forced.
Her phone was still there. Her purse was still there. The car seats were still inside her vehicle.
If Shanann had left on her own, why would she leave without her phone? Why leave without her medication? Why leave without her children's car seats? Small details began raising quiet red flags.
Neighbors gathered outside, confused and worried.
Chris even gave a local news interview, asking for his family to come home.
He looked straight into the camera and said, "I just want them back." But investigators noticed something subtle. There were no tears,
no visible panic, just controlled behavior.
And when police spoke to a neighbor who had surveillance cameras facing the Watts home, everything shifted.
Because that footage didn't show Shanann leaving that morning. It showed something else entirely. And in part 2, we'll break down the security video that changed the entire direction of the case. The driveway footage. Next door lived a man with a home security system pointed directly toward Chris Watts' driveway. When officers reviewed the footage, Chris stood behind them watching.
On video, around 5:27 a.m., Chris backed his truck into the driveway, something neighbors said he normally didn't do.
He usually parked on the street.
That morning, he reversed all the way up to the garage. For about 45 minutes, he walked back and forth between the house and his truck.
From the camera angle, you couldn't clearly see what he was loading.
But his body language changed while watching the video.
He swayed slightly, crossed his arms tightly, spoke quickly.
Investigators are trained to observe behavior.
And something felt off. Later that day, detectives learned Chris was having an affair with a coworker.
His marriage wasn't stable. He had told friends he wanted a fresh start.
Financial pressure was also heavy. Bankruptcy in the past. Debt rising again. Suddenly, the story of a wife who just left didn't feel solid.
Phone data revealed something even more disturbing.
Chris had searched online days earlier for information about separation and starting over financially. But the real break came during a polygraph test.
Chris agreed to take one voluntarily.
He failed.
When confronted with the results, his story changed. He claimed Shanann had hurt the children in a rage and that he reacted in panic. It was a shocking accusation.
But investigators weren't convinced because evidence doesn't follow emotion.
And in part 3, we'll uncover what police found at Chris's work site that destroyed his version of events completely.
The oil field discovery.
Chris Watts worked at an oil and gas site about 45 minutes from his home. Phone GPS data placed him at a remote oil storage location early the morning his family disappeared. When investigators searched the site, what they found confirmed their worst fears.
Shanann's body was buried in a shallow grave nearby.
The 2 young girls were discovered inside separate oil storage tanks. The crime shocked the nation.
It wasn't random. It wasn't a stranger. It was calculated.
Investigators determined that Chris had strangled Shanann inside their home after an argument. He then transported his children to the oil site and took their lives there. The motive appeared simple but disturbing. He wanted freedom.
A new relationship. A new life without responsibilities. During interrogation, he finally confessed.
He admitted he had lied on television. He admitted he staged the story.
The calm husband seen begging for his family's return had already known the truth.
The contrast between his public image and his private actions disturbed millions.
How does someone live a normal life one day and destroy it the next? And in part 4, we'll explore the psychological patterns experts believe were hiding beneath the surface all along.
The hidden warning signs. Friends described Chris as quiet,
passive, not aggressive.
But sometimes, danger doesn't show itself loudly. Experts later explained that Chris displayed signs of emotional detachment and conflict avoidance.
Instead of addressing problems openly, he suppressed them. Instead of seeking divorce honestly, he chose secrecy. He lived in 2 worlds: family man and secret affair.
When reality started closing in financially, emotionally, socially, he made a catastrophic decision.
He didn't act in rage. He acted in control.
That's what makes this case chilling. There were subtle warning signs:
sudden emotional withdrawal, secretive phone behavior, financial stress combined with lifestyle pressure, sudden personality shifts. But hindsight is always clearer. No one imagined he would go this far.
And that's the uncomfortable truth about many real crimes.
They don't always look violent beforehand.
Sometimes they look normal. And in part 5, we'll move away from the crime details and focus on what this case teaches, because the real purpose of this story is awareness.
The lessons that matter. This story isn't shared for shock.
It's shared for understanding.
Lesson 1.
Pay attention to drastic behavioral changes.
Sudden emotional coldness or secretive habits can signal deeper issues. Lesson 2. Financial stress is real pressure. Open conversations about money prevent hidden resentment. Lesson 3. Silence is not peace.
When someone avoids conflict constantly,
constantly, problems don't disappear, they grow. Lesson 4. Healthy relationships require honesty. Secrets create double lives. Double lives create collapse. Lesson 5. Trust actions more than words. Chris spoke calmly on camera, but his actions told the real story. The tragedy of this case isn't just loss, it's the chain of ignored warning signs. But there is one final reflection that matters most. And in part 6, we'll talk about the deeper responsibility we all share in preventing emotional breakdowns from turning into irreversible harm. Final reflection. The What's case shook America because it broke an assumption. That family equals safety. That normal equals harmless. But safety doesn't come from appearance. It comes from awareness. This story reminds us that unresolved pressure, emotional, financial, relational, must be addressed early, not ignored, not hidden. Real strength is asking for help before crisis begins. If you take one lesson from this case, let it be this: problems handled early stay small. Problems hidden in silence can explode. Real crime stories are painful, but they teach. And here on StoryZon, the goal is never fear. It's awareness, because awareness protects lives. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more real stories and life lessons only on StoryZon. See you in the next story.